Humans build complex systems using endpoint information. When we design a skyscraper or a microchip, we map out exactly where every beam and wire goes before we flip the on switch. The blueprint contains the final picture. It is tempting to assume our biology works the same way. We often talk about DNA as the genetic blueprint, containing the exact wiring instructions for the human body. But here's the problem. The human genome only stores about 750 megabytes of data. That is less information than an old CD-ROM. Now look at the structure it supposedly builds. A biological brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons, forming over 100 trillion specific connections. You cannot fit 100 trillion precise wiring instructions into a 750 megabyte file. The genome simply lacks the data capacity to act as a map for human intelligence. Information theory offers a different model, Kolmogorov complexity. Instead of storing a massive picture of the final product, you store a very short list of simple rules. This diagram shows a basic cellular automaton, governed by something called Rule 110. You start with a single square in a grid. A basic if-then rule looks at a triplet of squares in one row and dictates whether the square directly below them should be filled in the next row. The process runs sequentially. You apply the rule to generate a row, and then the output of that step becomes the exact input required for the next step. If you repeat this process 1,000 times, the result is an asymmetrical, highly intricate geometric pattern. Mathematicians have proven that this specific setup is Turing complete, meaning it can produce infinite complexity. That massive end pattern was never stored in the simple if-then rule. The data only emerged because the algorithm unfolded over time, consuming energy with every step. The biological brain grows using a similar algorithmic process. During development, neurons do not follow a static city map. They are autonomous agents. They blindly explore their environment, and the map physically changes in reaction to their movements. This requires a surprising ingredient: noise. In their early stages of growth, neurons exhibit highly promiscuous behavior. They extend outward and form loose, random connections with almost anything they touch. This diagram shows the subsequent refinement phase. Those initial chaotic, random synapses are systematically pruned. As the algorithmic rules process interactions and environmental feedback, weak lines dissolve away, leaving a highly structured, precise neural pathway. This messy, iterative self-assembly is how nature builds intricate, innate traits. A monarch butterfly migrates thousands of miles across generations without ever learning the route. Evolution did not write a specific gene for that migration route. Instead, it selected for a noisy, time-consuming developmental process that reliably yields that specific brain circuitry. When we look at modern artificial neural networks, the approach is entirely different. Today's boom in deep learning relies heavily on top-down design. Computer scientists engineer the network architecture first. They build a blank framework devoid of starting information, turn it on, and force-feed it enormous datasets. This diagram shows a typical artificial network structure. It is rigid and completely predictable. Artificial intelligence developers actively avoid biological concepts like autonomous cellular growth and initial random noise. Those traits are viewed as inefficiencies that must be engineered away. Because we treat artificial networks like engineered skyscrapers rather than self-assembling organisms, the fields of computer science and developmental neurobiology rarely interact. But we have to ask whether ignoring that biological messiness is actually holding us back. What if the noisy, time-consuming self-assembly of a growing brain is precisely what allows advanced cognition to occur? A pre-designed, rigid architecture relies entirely on the data you feed it. Without the flexibility of a network that physically rewires and prunes itself through trial and error, these models will likely hit a hard ceiling. If the goal is artificial general intelligence, we cannot rely on endpoint mapping. We have to embrace algorithmic growth. The next leap in intelligence will not come from writing a better blueprint. It will come from learning how to grow a mind.